Here's the thing. I just recorded a hour-long video, hour and a half long video, just to realize that the microphone sound was shit. So I'm going to give you the short version, the time-lapse version of the video, just to say that I have now a timeline component, a timeline widget in JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, the Holy Triad, and we can try to iterate over the current code and come up with something. It took me an hour and a half to create the to write the code because I was recording the video for you, and unfortunately I didn't check stuff. This is a new setup, and I assumed that everything was working fine. The camera was not working fine, so that should have give me some sort of hint that something else could not be working fine. But yeah, I was so excited with the project because honestly I'm thinking about it since Friday. I looked at it and I said, well, that's not that difficult. I mean, it is a complex element if you think about the data, right? It has to build itself according to the data that you provide. Depending on the size of the data, you need to do a few other things in order to load data in a lazy load format or something like that, and create the elements dynamically, because otherwise we end up with 1,000 elements on the page. But other than that, is a simple component. If you have a reasonable amount of data, it should work fine. So I was thinking about that since Friday, and I thought this is a good challenge. I'm going to try to create the element. So I want to show you. I recorded the video, but the sound was trash. So let me show you what I came up with. You can see here that I saved this, but this is what I came up with. So index HTML. So I just have two sections, one for the timeline and one for the table. I'm going to show you this in a moment. I have the CSS, which I know you don't really care about, right? And this is missing. I need to make the foot look good. Well, I need to create the foot first of all. And the timeline JavaScript file, which has 140 lines, so it's super tiny, and some data here that are imported from some website. I can show you the website later. I just searched for something that had a timeline. I happened to find this financial website with this stock financial records something. And then I just transformed to be just a date and a title, because that's exactly what I wanted to use. And then I wrote the code. The code is super simple. It creates the events sorted by date, right? It fills the table, because I do have a table to show the data, and then it sorts the data, because as you can see on the data side, I have in some dates, for example the 12th, I have two events. On the 9th, I have two events. So I wanted a way to present this data showing as many events per day as the data provides. Obviously, I don't want to repeat the days on the timeline. So I need unique data for the days. and then I transform the data just to show an array of events instead of array of days, right? And then I send all the data transform data to this function here to fill the timeline, which is super simple. And then I have some data formatting going on, but this is the meat of the function, which is to position the elements on the timeline according to the day and the bounds of the rest of the elements. Otherwise, the labels would show on top of each other. This was something I needed to study this, because I rarely use this type of thing to get the size of the elements of a page, because obviously I don't need to. In this case, I did. And then I have dragging for the timeline, and something that I noticed on the original thing you showed me is this. So I can use the mouse wheel to also scroll left or right. So let me show you what this looks like. So here I have the data, right, sorted by date, and here I have the element. The reason this was this way is because then you have a limited amount of space, so this looks like this, and you can click and drag to scroll, or use the mouse wheel, right? So super neat. It shows the events on the correct day, and you see that it does take care to not, for example, this is a super long label, and it takes care of this presentation, so the other labels for the other days, they don't show on top of this one. So this one is on the 7th. I'm missing the 6th here, right? So this is exactly the data that I have. So I'm not taking into consideration to create the days, the rest of the days. So I should show the 6th here without any data or without any labels, right? This is something that I'm going to do next. This is the first version, just to show you that it is possible to do something in JavaScript. I keep telling you, JavaScript is the king. Dude, you need JavaScript in your life, right? So this is this is super neat. I guess we could iterate over it and try to do something more. For example, I'm going to fix the day thing. This is super easy. What I'm thinking about is instead of just picking whatever the date is from the data, I'm going to pick the first record and the last record, and I'm going to iterate the days in between the dates that are on these records, right? And build, first of all, build this, and then I'll show the data whatever the label is. For example, here on the 6th, it wouldn't have any labels. This one pertains to the 6th, but it wouldn't have any labels. And the final thing would be to show the footer. It is here. I mean, it is on the HTML, right? It's empty, obviously. It doesn't have anything. It will have something, but it is there. So if I do, for example, a padding of 20 pixels, this is going to show already, right? And let me do this, and let me do a background like this, for example. So here it is. So this is the footer. Actually, let's go like this. Right. So there you go. You have a footer here. I am going to show in here Here, I'm sure the days, right? In here, I want to show the months and the years, just like the original one you showed me. Ah, drinking some Coke. Right. So yeah, it took me the best part of an hour to come up with the code for this. It's not completed, as you can see, but I just wanted to see if it is that difficult to write a component like this, and apparently is not. um, some important things that I mentioned in the video, but the sound is horrible. You can't hear anything, but it does have some protections against memory leak. For example, first of all, this is a module, right? The difference between doing this and this in HTML is the engine treats this differently. If you just put this type module, it treats the file as it was contained inside a narrower scope. Meaning, if in a file, if, for example, if in JavaScript file, right? Let me again do new.js. Right. So if you do something like var x equals 1 here, outside any scope, right? It's not inside a function, it's not inside anything. So the scope of x, you can see that I know it's a number because the scope of this x is global. So when I do this, if instead of timeline it was new without the module, this variable would be in the memory forever, especially because I'm using var, because it doesn't have any scope. So the scope is global. And the difference between doing this here and doing this inside a module, right? If it was like this, is it uses the main thread memory to do that. As for the module, when the module finished being used, it cleans up everything. So it creates a virtual scope for the variables you declare. Another thing that helps is instead of using var, which is the old way of declaring variables in JavaScript, you can use a constant now. So this is not going to be redefined, right? You set a value that is not going to be redefined. If I try to redefine it here, this is going to raise an error, right? This is going to complain. Therefore, I cannot do this, right? This is going to, let me even check because this is not, I'm not using this file, right? Let me use the file so we can see this happening. So new.js. And let's call that function that is going to redefine it, right? Anything. So I have an error here. I assigned it to constant variable. It doesn't let me reassign the variable, okay? And this is all happening inside the module. The new way instead of var, if I want to redefine a variable, is to use let, because then I have a first value, but then I can redefine it if I want, right? So now what I have is 2 because it got redefined instead of an error. So there are a few things, let me delete this file because we don't really need it. There are a few things we can do in order to limit the scope of variables and therefore helping the memory. In the video I show the memory when I start doing when I start working on the file, and after I'm finished, it's like 6.4 megabytes. But before, without using module, right? Before I start with the thing, oh, there you go, 6.2. So before using the module, this was 12, and it was growing, right? Because the variable is still there, it's still being used, and you have a lot of stuff on the HTML, etc., etc. So it's a lot of stuff, right? So it takes memory, and it doesn't clean up the memory because the thing was, well, not well done. Using, and I have some data. Obviously, it takes some space, but by doing like this, I'm importing the file because this is a module. I can do an import. By doing like this, I scoped everything, so I don't have variables outside of anything. When the function is done, all the variables are garbage collected. Everything is garbage collected. So in the end, after init, after I have my page, you don't see memory going up, right? Well, actually, it went down 3.2 because it collected already something. So this is super. This is I think the best way to create components, because the components are not going to take up the entire memory of your application. And although this is a very this is a complex element, right? For HTML, this is a complex element, and I do have the data here, which is another component. But even though I have all of this, in with you know, you don't lose the header, etc. So I took the care of doing the thing the best way possible, but I'm using mostly CSS to present the things. Therefore, I don't use much JavaScript, because JavaScript, obviously, it takes some time to be processed, to be to run the code, right? Because it has to be interpreted by the engine. So yeah, some details on how to do stuff that makes everything not shit, and therefore you can use this. I can even transform this into a proper web component, right? Because I already have the code here. So all I have to do is to create a class that is going to receive some data on the constructor, and is going to create the element on the page. So I could create a native web component based on the code that I have and the CSS, and you know, instead of doing this, you would just do something like timeline, and there you go. It would be something like this. But yeah, for now, this is what I have. I am going to work on this just to see if I can do it. I'm going to work on the dates here, and I am going to get a much larger data set than this. I was looking yesterday, I was looking to Wikipedia, for example, and I have the timeline of the entire 20th century, which is a lot of stuff. Since 1901, it goes through all the wars, all the events, everything that happened, men stepping on the moon, the Sputnik launch, Laika being launched into space, all the treaties, all the, you know, everything that happened in the 20th century up until, we're still in 1985. So it's a lot of stuff. 1994, 98, 2000. So the timeline, you can see that they also have a timeline here, which is not particularly good. So imagine if we use the same type of data for our timeline. So it goes to 2000, right? Which is a lot of data. So what I want to do with this is I am going to get all of this. I'm going to select all of this using jQuery. I'm going to create a data set much like this one with the date and the event, right? And then I'm going to throw this into our component and see what happens. Because this is going to be fun, right? It has to be. Because in here I have a limited amount of data. I have 10 lines of data. In here, I don't even know, but it has to be a lot of data. This is the entire history of the 20th century. So yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, let's see. It's not a big project. This is exactly a weekend project, and like I said, it took me an hour to whip up this. I don't think that is going to take much more to finish it up, and then we can think about, okay, if I mouse over this, if I click on it, because I saw on the other one, if you click on it, it gives you more information. We can have more information here. I can have whatever I want on the data. Sorry, I can have whatever I want on the data, and I can do whatever I want with it. So if I click on the thing, it's going to blink, or it's going to present a drop down on a I don't know, a panel where I can see the rest of the data. I can just show part of this, so a number of characters, and then you can see the rest if you mouse over or click. There are a million ways I can do this, but yeah, I just wanted to show you the project because this was super fun. This is super fun, and the parallax effect, I'm looking forward to work on it, because it's another thing that this is not this is not the regular stuff we do every day, and it's super fun to work on. So yeah, but seriously, next time give me a challenge. This was too easy. Come on.